businessmen realize if you got a check for 2 cents, it might cost you how much to process that check. Yeah. Anyway, so like I said, diabolical. But boy, it's a great idea. How many of you heard Joe Walsh last month? My, how time flies. He was a little bit intense, wasn't he? Just a little bit. Well, get ready to have your socks blown off again. Our main speaker resides in Fort Wayne, Indiana, with his wife Queenie and 3 boys. He served in the U.S. Air Force from February 71 to September 74, then joined the Indiana National Guard and served until September 76. Emery got started with patriotic volunteer work shortly after he helped with two-way amateur radio communications at the Fort Wayne, Indiana Glenn Beck Rally for the troops, and with the National Glenn Beck Rally in Huntington, West Virginia. He got involved in the Tea Party movement through Blog Talk Radio during the first Tea Party of April 2008 by helping broadcast the event. He then organized the Fort Wayne Tea Party, which had Dr. Alan Keyes as a keynote speaker. He is quite a speaker also. He became a motivation speaker at Tea Party rallies and events as a way to help show citizens how important it is to save our Constitution and Republic. Ladies and gentlemen, Emery McClendon.
Hello. Wow. It's really high behind the podium now. I'm happy to be here. Very excited about being here. Very excited about what's going on in America and seeing people get involved, do things for your country, doing things for your community, because believe me, it needs to be done. We're in a very serious situation in this country today, and a lot of people don't really understand just how serious it really is. Every day we see more and more and more the undoing of our liberties, of our freedom. We see more and more undoing of the Constitution. And we see more and more of a lackadaisical attitude from the general public that they just don't care, or in a similar phrase that rhymes, give me my share. Your share. Did I push this wrong? Oh,
No, we're okay.
okay. Well, anyway, I got involved with the Tea Party movement way back before there even was a Tea Party. There was no name Tea Party movement. And I'll tell you a little bit about my story before I get into what I'm going to really talk about, because it's kind of important, because it really keys itself in to the movement, because I kind of like smoothly transitioned into something that really was that dear to my heart. I grew up in a real liberal, quote unquote, family that wasn't liberal. They were really conservative, but they didn't know they were conservative because of the values that they taught. The Christian values, the governmental values, the home and family values, respecting your neighbors, respecting your fellow man values. But at the same time, my parents were always taught that you have to be a Democrat. You have to be a Democrat because they're the ones that do the most for the people, and especially for the minorities. So they didn't ask any questions in that regard, but they always used to come to us when we were kids and as we grew up, and always wondered, why don't my values really line up with really what they're telling me that they should line up with? Because they don't. Because they actually held to real constitutional, freedom-loving, God-fearing values. And they taught us these values, and then we were always called, as their kids in the neighborhood, the goody two-shoes of the neighborhood. Everybody always said, you guys think you're better than everybody else because your parents are always teaching you that you have to work, that you need to be exemplary in the community, that you need to stand up and be for God, for country. And most of those kids, they didn't even know, for the most part, who God was, what the country stood for, because their parents didn't teach them those values. So I found myself at odds all throughout life. When I went to school, started out in elementary school, junior high school, I was always at odds with all the other kids in the neighborhood. Sometimes I get chased home. Sometimes Sometimes I wouldn't. They'd wait for me at home. And believe it or not, even through all that time through school, I only had one fight. And the reason why I only had one fight, see, we had a large family. It was 7 kids, the 2 parents. But I had a brother. My brother, his name was Billy. It is Billy. And he was a bad dude. I mean, he didn't care about anything. He would whip everybody in the neighborhood, one by one. He'd line them up in line. And he would pick fights. But he would come out and say, look, you mess with anybody in my family, you're messing with me. And I like to fight anyway, so it doesn't matter. So he was pretty bad, so everybody knew about his bad reputation. So even though we were the people that they didn't like, they wouldn't bother us. So when I went through school, a lot of times the teacher would ask questions about the government, about family, about God. I'd answer it in a true conservative way. The kids would get mad. They would threaten, we're going to get you, and blah, 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 and you can't think like this because you sound un-American, because this is not the way we were taught. But at the same time, they wouldn't mess with me. They would jump other kids. They would so-called, quote-unquote, beat some sense into them and make them think and do the way that they were supposed to act in the community. But they never bothered us. I remember going through school. My brother, he ended up in jail once because he beat up a couple people on the way home from school, and he hurt them real bad. So he ended up in jail. But I'll never, ever forget him. Just recently, the 2 of us, I called him on the phone and I said, hey, look, I said, I need to get away for a while. So I'm stressed out. I said, I've been doing all this Tea Party stuff and all this stuff with the military, and I just need to get away. I said, would you like to go with me? I said, I like to enjoy you. I said, as a matter of fact, we got another brother. He lives down in South Carolina. He lives on Hilton Head Island. And I said, let's go to Hilton Head and visit Mike, our brother, and just the 3 of us. I said, we've never done that. All of our lives. We've never spent any time together. And I like to tell, on the way down there, drive and tell you about all the good times, the bad times we had when we were young, and all the times you protected us and kept us from danger. I just like to one-on-one be able to thank you for that, even though I didn't agree with his tactics. I didn't agree with a lot of the things that he did, but I was thanking God deep down in my heart for my brother, because I probably would be mincemeat somewhere in some alley, or all cut up or beat up or whatever if it wasn't for him. Because there were some bad dudes in our neighborhood too, but they didn't mess with us because they knew that they would have to hear from Billy. So we did that. We went down to South Carolina, and we spent a week together a couple weeks ago. And it really was very meaningful to me, to him, and to my other brother. But getting back to the story of how I got involved into all this, like I said, my mother was very strict. She took us to church. I mean, every time the doors open, and they must have been open a lot, because boy, she used to drag us to church all the time. We would be in church on Monday night for choir rehearsal, Tuesday night, Wednesday night, Friday night. If they had something on Saturday, we'd be there for that. And then Sunday morning, we'd get up and we'd walk to Sunday school, and we'd go home after church, we'd eat, and then we'd march back to church again on Sunday night. So a lot of time in church. She taught us about God. She taught us about principles. She taught us about how to treat your fellow man, how to treat your brothers and your sisters. And everybody to her was your brother and your sister. It didn't matter. It didn't matter if you were black, if you were white. It didn't matter how old you were. You respect your elders. You love your country. And most importantly, you worked for what you want. And you earned it. So what'd she make us do? I had a paper out. I mowed lawns. I did all kinds of stuff growing up. But it taught us values. It taught us something that a lot of the other kids in the neighborhood refused to get, because their parents were always telling them that the government owes you something. So now you see how we got in the situation that we got into, a lot of the people that live down in the ghetto, a lot of people that live in the disadvantaged neighborhoods, because everybody's always telling them that the government and everybody else owes you something. So they got this mentality that everybody owes them. So when a person like Barack Obama comes along, when a person like Bill Clinton comes along, or when a liberal comes along, Charles Schumer, or our illustrious Harry Reid comes along and says the government will give you this, government will give you that, the government owes you this and owes you that, this is an entitlement society, they fall lock, step, and barrel right into it, because this is what they expect, because the government owes them. the old Robin Hood syndrome. Just recently, a couple weeks ago, the Occupy Fort Wayne people got a hold of the Fort Wayne Tea Party people, and they said, we want to do a forum and debate with you guys. Who can we get to come and do that? Everybody ran for cover. They said, we don't want to mess with those Occupy guys because they're crazy. So they asked me, would you be willing to do something like that? And I said, why not? I said, I'm not afraid of them, you know, because actually their true colors will be shown if we bring them out in the open. So I got some advice from different Tea Party leaders around the country. I asked them, you know, should we do this? Should we? No, don't do it. I even went to Washington, D.C. to a rally, I mean not a rally, but a training session for Tea Party patriots and also one for Americans for Prosperity. And I talked to some of those guys. And while I was there at that rally and training session in Washington, D.C., I had my own experience with Occupy Wall Street. Any of you guys read my experience, what happened on Facebook and some of the other things that happened as I blogged it, and I was also put on YouTube. Well, to make a long story short, I went to the Americans for Prosperity National Convention that they have every year in November. This year they're moving it to August, but because of the elections. And lo and behold, as we were inside enjoying ourselves, listening to the speakers and learning more and more about capitalism and the free market system and how it works, we heard this noise outside. And all of a sudden, the big jumbo screens came on, and there was all of these young, hippie-looking people standing outside. They had surrounded the building, all 4 squares. And everybody, and the lady, she was one of the board members of Americans for Prosperity. She said, I hate to bust anybody's bubble. She said, I know you guys are in here enjoying your meal, you're having a good time. She says, we're learning about the free market enterprise, but we got a problem. Because the people outside have said that none of us are going to get out of here tonight alive or without injury, that they're going to hurt us, and that they're out there to do some damage. And man, you should have heard, seen it. So I got up out of my seat. I wanted to see this thing firsthand. I didn't want to see it on the jumbo screen. So I walked over, went out of the ballroom and outside and down the hallway and looked outside. And sure enough, there was policemen out there. They were fighting with the people. They had the building surrounded. They were beating on the doors. They had clubs and sticks. And so while I was standing there, a couple of the guys started fighting with a couple of police officers. And they were having these signs up saying you're not coming out. They were throwing things at the building. And you know what they did? They had these little kids. They must have been 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 years old. Some of them were a little older, some were even younger because they were carrying them in their arms. They set these kids down in front of each one of the entrance doors and then barricaded them in with their coats and their shoes and anything else they could find. And then dared us when the event was over to open the doors to push the kids out of the way. That's how senseless they are. And that's how their minds are so warped that they would sacrifice their own kids just to keep the free market system from prospering. But we had a message for them that night, that we weren't going to let them frighten us. So a lot of the people walked out. They tried to get out. They beat up several of them. They were mostly picking on the elderly and the older people, the ones that were disabled and whatnot. And as they were coming out of the building, I saw several older women I wanted to get out so bad because I wanted to go out there. Look, pick on somebody that's a veteran. Pick on somebody that's been to overseas. Pick on somebody that's your size. Pick on somebody that will fight you back. But they wouldn't let us out there. You know, most of the young guys and some of the people, I'm not young, I don't. But I can handle myself. So I said, I want to get out there, but they wouldn't let us out there. So I roamed around the different entrances trying to get out, and they wouldn't let us out. And we couldn't even get out because they had the doors blocked. But at the same time, they had put these little kids and stuff out there daring us to push the doors open so we could get out. And the few that did get out, they would let them get about halfway across the street, and then they would converge on them and then attack them. And there was a guy who was driving a car, and I'll never forget this the rest of my life. He was coming through, and he stopped, and he says, you could hear him talking, I'm just trying to get home. I don't have anything to do with this. I just want to go home to my wife and kids. They surrounded the car, they attacked the car, and they were starting to look like they were going to pull him out of the car and drag him out. So the guy had no choice. So what did he do? He floored it, and he ran over a couple of them. So then they started calling the police, You know, look at this guy, he killed one of our, the guy was laying on the ground. Of course, he was faking it because I saw the whole thing. He didn't really hurt the guy, he just kind of brushed him off so he can get out of there. And I don't blame him. I'd have done the same thing. But to make a long story short, this is what we're up against. A mentality of people who want something for nothing, who will go at any length to get what they want, and they'll do it with the help of the government, because even our beloved Nancy Pelosi says that Occupy people are a group of people that we share a lot in common with and that we love. That's a shame. Even our president has put his stamp of approval on the Occupy Wall Street people, but he calls us a bunch of low-down, dirty troublemakers, racists. He calls us all kinds of names in the book. And we are the ones that are actually out here trying to save America from ruin. And listen to the things that my mother and father taught me. And my father, he worked for the post office. And he started off as a letter carrier. Then he got promoted to, he was some kind of a route guy where he went around and checked on everybody else who was doing all the mail runs and stuff. And then finally, because my father, he loved the work of automobiles, he had a mechanic's license, he got into the post office garage, he became a mechanic, then he became one of the chief mechanics. So he was always telling us, though, in life, that if you want anything, you got to work for it. If you want people to respect you, you got to be respected. And on and on and on. So that's kind of the way that I got involved into the Tea Party, is that I began way back around 1980, 1981, to listen more close attention to the conservative values, because all the time in my life, I always thought that this is really where I was, but I just didn't know it. I mean, but people always used to tell me, you better vote Democrat, my uncles and my aunts and so forth, and even my parents. If you're, election day, you leave out of this house, boy, and you didn't pull that D, you better not come back. But they didn't know why. I mean, only the fact that it was just because of the sake of being a Democrat. So I fought with them, and fought with them, and fought with them a little bit, but I didn't have any reasons why, because I didn't know anything. So I finally went off into the wild blue yonder. I joined the Air Force. When I got into the Air Force, I started meeting all these shady characters from all around the country, from Detroit, St. Louis, Miami, Los Angeles. And I started getting into arguments with them about things. And pretty soon they told me, man, there's something wrong with your brain, man. You mixed up. You're upside down, man. You don't sound like a regular American, from where we come from. I said, well, first of all, I said, you guys have come from a situation that's totally different from mine anyway. I said, because all you ever see is violence. A lot of you come from one family homes. You never saw your dad. Your mom, when she did work, she was working the streets and not doing the things that a mom should do. So quite naturally, you feel differently than I do about values. You feel differently than I do about things in life. So that kind of, as I try to convince my fellow American brothers and sisters and all the people that I came in contact with, that this is not really the view of America that you should have. You should have a view of America that protects your liberty, your freedom, the Constitution. You should know what this republic stands for, what freedom means, and what being able to go out and do as a person, being able to use your brain, use your ability to succeed. That's what America's all about. That's what free enterprise is all about. That's what limited government's all about. That's why we believe in fiscal responsibility. We believe in it because that is the best way for any society to excel. And look what it's done for America. America, in under 250 years, has become the greatest nation upon the face of the earth because we have allowed our people to be free. But now, they want to take it away from us. Not only in the halls of Congress, not only in the White House, but they have also put in these czars. We've had people elected to political offices who swear upon the open Bible that they will defend and protect the Constitution, and turn around and betray us. Excuse me. And for the most part, Americans have sat back and accepted it. Oh boy. I got operated on when I was in the Air Force on my throat. So every once in a while I'll lose my voice, and this is one of those moments. But, well, anyway, America, what has happened to America? Thank you. I had when I was in the Air Force, we were standing in line one day in front of the barracks, and these guys came by in white coats, and some high brass guys, some colonels and some generals, and they went, eeny, meeny, miny, mo. Follow us. You know, I think some of you guys have been in the military, you know exactly what I'm talking about. So for 7 days, I followed them. They took me to a hospital. They dressed us in garb, gave us some pajamas and stuff, and said, you're going to be guinea pigs for the next 7 days. Well, my throat was a result of that guinea pig experiment. They told me that you still have your tonsils. We need to take those out. So I called my mother on the phone. I said, well, Mama, they're going to take my tonsils out. Don't let them do it. Don't let them do it. I said, I have no choice. They told me I'm a guinea pig and that I have to come with them. They took my tonsils out. She said, don't worry then, son. It'll only take about 3 or 4 hours. You'll have a couple popsicles and you can go home. Okay? 14 days in the hospital for a tonsillectomy. 14 days, bleeding for about 3 or 4 of those days. Wouldn't stop. They finally took tannic acid and all this other stuff, stuck it down in my throat to make it stop. And now, I can't talk sometimes, and other things that are going on because of that. So I'm now a disabled veteran. I fought it. I didn't even know I could fight it until after I got out and do anything about it. But here I am, but still, I don't use that as an excuse because I can still succeed because I believe in America and I believe in doing the right thing. But anyway, what has happened to America? Our morals have gone south. People don't believe in the flag. They don't believe in the Constitution anymore. They don't believe in God anymore. They don't believe in values anymore. But I stand here to tell you that the reason why we're here, the reason why I'm here, you're here, is because we still believe in the United States of America. Isn't that right? And the reason why we still believe in America is because America works. America works, and America is good, and America is great. I mean, because America is good, because we believe in doing the right thing. And we, as members of the Tea Party movement, are here tonight to make sure that we continue the American dream, the American traditions. We don't care if Mr. Barack Obama and his minions want to tear this country down. We're here to stand up and say, no, you won't. We will not let that happen, and we are going to stand and fight regardless of the consequences because America is too young to die, and we want our America back. They're pulling our freedoms and our liberties one by one, and in some cases more than one by one. Take a look around you. When you're on the internet, go sometimes to the website where the president signs all these executive orders and just look at the things that he's doing behind our back that we never even hear about. You know, one by one, taking them all away. One was just mentioned tonight when the Leon Panetta, he goes in and tells them that they don't even need Congress anymore to declare war. President Obama has sent troops into Africa and some other places. We didn't even know they were there until all of a sudden they popped up on the news one day. This is un-American. This is not what this country was founded upon, and it must stop. And we have to make sure that we educate people. We have to make sure that we continue to let people know. We have to vet those who are in government that will not vet themselves. It's up to us to vet and let people know this is what they're doing behind your back. This is the freedom that they're taking away from you. These are the liberties that they're taking away from you, or trying to take away from you. And this is their vision for America. It's the vision of a Saul Alinsky. It's the vision of a Frank Marshall White. It's the vision of this latest professor that they had from Obama's college that says that he hates white people, that he hates everybody, that he lives every day to destroy people's lives. That's not what we live for. We live to increase productivity, to make people's lives better, and to make people say, yes, I fear God, yes, I love my country, and I want to see it become better and better. America has not seen its greatest days only if we fail to continue to let America see its greatest days. Am I right about that? Yeah. Who wants to destroy us? It seems like everybody in Washington, D.C. wants to destroy us. They ought to make a program on TV. They got Who Wants to Be a Millionaire? Who wants to destroy us? Boy, that'd be interesting. We would probably see people who we never even dreamed of on that TV show. It's just like, I remember when the health care bill was being passed. When they made that historic walk down the halls of Congress, and they showed Nancy Pelosi walking with that giant-sized gavel. I wanted to snatch that thing out of her hand. I tell you, she just made me so mad because she had this arrogant look on her face, and she was just pounding that little thing, big thing, in her hand. I thought it was going to tip her over there for a while, as she was walking down the hallway with it. And when I was in Washington, D.C., when she was walking down the hall one day, and she came within a few feet of me. And I asked her, where's that gavel? and I remember that movie when Eddie Murphy, he did The Golden Child, he was ringing that little thing, and he says, I want the knife. So I started talking, I said, I want that gavel. And she looked at me like I was crazy. But that's okay, because the symbolism behind what she did that week let all of us know, or should have let us know, that America was in trouble. And that our leaders no longer care about what we think, but about what they think, and about what's good for them. Just like she'll go out and fly around when she had that big oversized jet that she had, carrying all her family members, spending all that money, spending, coming from Congress, coming from our president. And now it's moving into our state legislators. And thank you for the gentleman who says that he would go to our state legislator and uphold our Indiana values. That's what we need. More and more of that today. But we've got to stop this. We're broke already. America needs to be fixed. But I tell you, if we don't do something soon, we are going to fall. How many in here want to fall? How many in here want to live like they do over in Italy? No. How many in here want to be Romania? No. How many in here want to be China? No. Your president says you don't want to be. He says America is no longer great. He says America is no longer that city that sits on a shining hill. He praises the Chinese over us. Is that what we want? No. They want to destroy us. Their goal is to bring us into abject socialism. But our goal is to say, you will fail. Because we will see to it that you fail. And the reason why we want you to fail is because history proves that your system of beliefs are a failure. Whether it be through the EPA, coming up with all these high energy prices and stupid ideas like putting algae in my gas tank. Can you imagine? They can't even keep our fuel injectors clean now. Can you imagine algae in your tank? The president, he refuses to sign the pipeline deal. Hundreds of thousands of jobs. Hundreds of thousands of jobs gone by the wayside because he doesn't want to see America prosper from oil. It must be stopped. We cannot allow Mr. Barack Obama to be elected for another term. Can you imagine what this country would look like? 4 more years of a president who has no accountability? A president who wouldn't care because what are you going to do to me? What are you going to do to me? You know, yeah, they bragged last week, we got an impeachment bill before Congress, what good is that going to do? There's not enough time this term to carry it through, and even if they did, it wouldn't go anywhere, because number one, they'd have to bring it up in the House, go through all that, vote for it, and then send it over to the Senate. What do you think will happen to it in the Senate with Harry Reid as the President Pro Tem? He won't even pass a budget. He says we're not going to even look at a budget, any kind of budget. All of these years, since all the time that the Democrats have been in charge of Congress, no budget, no budget, no budget. But yet continuing resolution, continuing resolution, continuing resolution. And what is that doing to us? It's bankrupting America, it's showing irresponsibility, and it's making us the laughing stock of the world. And then, all the permits that the president could allow to happen off the Gulf Coast, anywhere else in our offshore areas. 2 permits, I think, in the last, 2 years? The history has, there used to be, 9 permits a month or whatever that they used to try to get through. 2 permits. And then he goes on TV, national television, mind you, and I call him the Lion King, from the movie The Lion King. And he says that America is drilling more oil now than at any time in its history. Can you believe that?
No.
Is this what we want?
No.
Is this why we're gathered here tonight?
Yeah.
We are gathered here because we stand united. We stand as Tea Party patriots, a movement that started from grassroots, that continues to be grassroots, who has no leaders, even though we do have places where we meet, groups where we meet. But we stand as individuals who are against all of these taxes, the spending, and the out-of-control government. And I'm proud to stand here and be one of you tonight. Unemployment. They're lying to us about that. The real unemployment rate is probably somewhere around 9.3, 9.7. Youth unemployment is in the 40%. It's terrible. But yet the president refuses to do anything about jobs. He's turned his back on Israel. He's turning his face toward Iran, apologizing to third-rate nations all around the world and telling them that America is not a Christian nation. That Americans shouldn't be so proud, that we need to be cut down a notch. Does anybody in here want to be cut down a notch?
No.
Anybody in here thinks we're exceptional?
Yeah.
You ought to be standing on your feet for that one, because we are exceptional as Americans. This is an exceptional nation. And I, for one, am proud to say it, because it's true. It's not because we brag. It's not because we think we're better than anybody else. It's because we have fed the world. We have given the world technology. We have given the world medical technology. We have given the world a standard of living like no other nation in the history of the world. And we're supposed to be ashamed of that? I, for one, am not ashamed of it. And I'm here tonight to rally you as my fellow Americans, as my fellow citizens, as my fellow Tea Partiers, to continue to move America forward. This is my dream. This should be your dream. It is your dream. That's why we're here. We're here because we have to fight back against the lights and the policies, the beliefs that are way out of step of people like Michelle Obama, Barack Obama, Jeremiah Wright, Frank Marshall Wright, all of the other people, Rahm Emanuel, the czars, our illustrious housing secretary, Janet Napolitano, that's a gem. Sandra Fluke, the person who wants free contraceptives because she's having so much fun, she can't afford it. So she spends $3,000 a year, which is a lie, on contraceptives, she tells us, and that Americans like you and me, hardworking Americans who are responsible individuals, need to pay for her frivolous times. That's not the way America works. And I, for one, am happy to see that the Catholics are waking up and they're standing up. And we're standing toe-to-toe with them to let them know that this is not the direction we want America to go. We're having a rally in Fort Wayne on next Friday. I've been asked to be one of the speakers. at that rally. And we're going to let them know that this is not about contraceptives. It's about a power grab. It's about control. It's about taking your freedom away from you. It's about taking your money away from you and giving it to someone else. That was one of the things that came out in the Occupy debate. One of the gentlemen said that we need to, at our court, he said we need to take the money from the rich people because they don't need it. It's just sitting around in some bank somewhere. And it's like little sheep, you know, that they count jumping over fences. So he said, we need to stop and grab a couple of them sheep and bring it over to our side and give it to us. He says, we need to eat the rich. So I asked him, I said, young man, his wife is the vice president of Occupy Fort Wayne. And for 6 months, we tried to get them kicked out of the park. They finally did it on last Sunday. We tried to get them kicked out because I told them, I said, look, when I had the first Tea Party in Fort Wayne, Indiana, we brought in Alan Keyes and we fought. And I'll tell you a little bit of that story just before I sit down. But so I had to pay for those permits out of my pocket. An individual. And the city laughed at me when I went down to get the permit. And they said, you gotta be kidding me. They said, when I called them on the phone and told them that I had filled out the permit and I wanted to know what the procedure was to get a permit to have a Tea Party rally. They laughed, man, they laughed. And I said, well, you know, what's so funny, you know? And they said, well, you got 2 strikes against you. He said, the first one, you're black. What the world are you doing? You can't have no Tea Party. I mean, nobody's gonna come down to your Tea Party, you know? You stand for America, you ought to be over there with the rest of those guys who says that America owes them something. And then the other strike they said was nobody's gonna come because this Tea Party is something so new that nobody's gonna be there. So they changed the times on me and said, hey, look, if you want to get that permit down here, you got to have it down there within a certain time period. I said, well, I can't do that. I'm at work. I said, can't you, you stay open till 5 o'clock at night? Why can't you wait till I get off work and I bring the permit down and then the money to pay for it? And they said, oh no, you asked for the permit and we're telling you right now that we don't have time to process it. So if you want to come down and get a permit, you better come down within a certain time frame here. I think it was like 10 to 1. I said, I can't do that because I don't get off work till 3:30. I said, not like that, but it's not fair. So I was riding around on my route. I drive for this delivery company. And I was looking like I had been ran over by a bus or something. So one of the ladies, she saw me and she says, Emery, she said, what's wrong with you? She said, you really look like you've been run over by a bus. And I said, yeah, I feel like I've been run over by one. I said, I just got off the phone with the mayor's office and I told them that I wanted to do this Tea Party. And they laughed at me and they said that you had a couple strikes against you. Not only that, but you got to have the permit down there at a certain time and the fee for the permit. Even though I had already talked to 2 members of the county council and the county commissioners, and they said I didn't even need a permit. They said, nobody's ever had a permit in the past. They said, have your Tea Party. Do what you got to do. But when I called the city, the mayor's office, and told them who I was and what I was going to do, they said, hey, wait a minute. And I told them what the commissioners and the county council had said. And they said, well, hey, you can have your Tea Party, but yeah, the county owns the courthouse, but we own the sidewalks and the grass. So where people going to stand? So you're going to be in the air? And I'm going, what in the world are these people trying to pull now? So in other words, the county, since it's the county courthouse, but the city put the sidewalks in, and since the county said I can have permission to be on the property, but the city owns the sidewalks, we can't come and stand on the sidewalks or the grass. So I said, now wait a minute, why can't we stand on the grass? I said, I've seen other events down there. People said, well, if you want to pay $10,000 to resod all that grass, Mr. McClendon, so that's up to you. And I said, boy, I tell you, it's always something. I said, the good guys, you're always in trouble. You can never do anything right. But lo and behold, like I said, things worked out. We had the 2nd largest Tea Party in the state of Indiana. Alan Keyes came. He volunteered after he heard all the problems that we were having. Said, I will come for free to talk at your Tea Party in Fort Wayne. He even got arrested. A couple of days later, when he went to South Bend. You remember the controversy they had over there? Obama came to speak, and they didn't want him to speak, so Alan Keyes went over there behind that. But that's okay. But remember, people, they came after different groups. They did our energy stuff. The military. Look what they're doing to the military. Look what Obama's doing to our military. The morale. And I, for one, am very pro-military because I do events every year. For the last 8 years, I've done events. I've worked with Military Families United. I've gone to the White House and been with President Bush and discussed different ways of how we can boost the morale of our military. And it's important because they need our support, especially now. And especially since all the incidents that have been happening. The false accusations about burning of the Qurans. Then we have this one fellow who was cracked and shot some civilians. Yeah, that's wrong. You know, everybody's got to be responsible for their crimes. But you don't go and say, we'll turn him over to you in 3 days, and you can do with him wherever you want to, or whatever. Or release his name before he's even out of the country. And then all these riots and whatnot that are going on over there, we're being stooly, we're being tricked. This administration will love nothing more than to see civil unrest and to see things continue to go downhill because they're scared, they're afraid, they think they're going to lose. And we hope they do lose. Yeah. We can make it happen. We can make it happen. We have to work together to make it happen. The players in this are their czars, the rhinos, those who refuse to continue to uphold our great historic document, the Constitution of the United States of America, the supreme law of the land. Even though they have people like Cass Sunstein, even though they have their Bill Ayers, even though they have the Bernadine Dorn and her husband, the radicals, even though they have Cloud and Piven, you know what we have? John Doe citizen, the patriot. The person that loves America, deep down in your heart. The person that's willing to say, this is my country. This is what we believe in. And this we will keep. You agree? Yeah. In a couple of weeks, they're going to start deliberating on Obamacare. Obamacare must go!
Yes.
We don't need the government in our health care. And we just found out that it's going to cost a lot more than what they told us because they were lying from the get-go anyway.
Yeah.
And everything about Obamacare stinks. Everything about Obamacare stinks. And if you don't want to lose what we have, if you don't want to lose our great medical advances, if you don't want to lose your prescription drugs and the research that goes along behind all of these, you better get behind the movement and stand up and say, we have had enough. There's going to be rallies in Washington, D.C. on the 27th and one on the 24th by Tea Party Patriots and Americans for Prosperity. Get behind those rallies. If you can't go, send them a donation because we must defeat this bill. They take over almost 1/3 of our economy in just this one act alone. That's a lot of money, folks. And along with all these fake stimuluses and all the other things that they're doing, money that we don't even know where it is, money being funneled back through the unions to Occupy Wall Street and different other union-type activities, trying to defeat the right-to-work laws, trying to make everybody be involved in unions. SEIU, the Government Employees Union, is growing faster than any other union in the United States of America. Probably right up there along with the NEA and the teachers' unions and stuff. But these are being done for a reason. They're getting more and more people on the government dole, more and more people involved with the government because eventually they want everybody to be responsible to Big Brother. We don't want that. This is not our goal. So I'm here tonight, all the way from up north, in the little right-hand part of the state, to come to tell you that I'm with you. I want to motivate you to continue. You have a great group here. I've heard a lot about you. America is a great place to live. America is a great place to be. But it won't be It won't be if we fail to move and to work, to do what is right for not only us, but for our children and for our grandchildren. We're broke. They're spending. They continue to spend. They continue to pass un-American laws. They continue to say that we can't gather, we can't speak. They're sending the drones up now, spying on your house. Hey, they're in your icebox. They're in your school lunches. They're in your guest rooms. They're doing everything. They're telling you how many fat calories you can eat, how much sugar you can ingest, how many Coca-Colas you can drink. And before it's all over with, they're going to tell you how much money you can take home, because they're going to take that away from you too.
Yes, sir.
We can't let it happen, people. We must stay motivated. We must stay dedicated Americans. We must continue to let our neighbors, our friends, our families know that yes, this Constitution is dear to me. This is my heart. This is the law of our land. This is what we go by as Americans, not some manifesto that was written by some guy in a dark, smoke-filled room that tells us that there can be no assembly, that there can be no free speech, that our children have to pay insurmountable debts that will hang around their necks like millstones until they die. We can't let this happen, people. We have to stand up. And I'm here tonight to encourage you, to ask you, to beg you, to stand for America. You know, we hear this all the time. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal. They are endowed with certain inalienable rights by their Creator. It is our Creator that gives us these rights, not Mr. Obama, not our Congress, not those in Washington, D.C. Let's stand up. Let's continue to be Americans. Let's fight for our rights. Mr. Obama has showed us that he can do anything but lead. He can sing. He knows Al Green songs. He knows B.B. King songs. He can have his concerts every Tuesday night in the White House. But he cannot lead. He cannot govern. And he has not governed. And it's time to boot him out. It's time to boot out Lugar. And it's time to boot out all the rest of the rhinos and those who will not uphold our Constitution of the United States of America. We want them out of our lives, out of our kitchens, out of our food, out of our cholesterol. We can handle that ourselves. So what must we do? We must continue to gather. We must continue to rally. We must continue to work. We must continue to stay together and to bond, to educate, to teach each other what it means to be an American, to teach our children, to teach our children's teachers. Because they sure don't know what it means to be Americans and what the Constitution teaches. We must, from the halls of our houses, the halls of Congress, continue to stand for the United States of America, for each and every one of those who dress in the military uniforms and protect our freedoms. Let them know that we stand behind them and that they defend our freedoms. If they're out of the way, which is what Mr. Obama wants, he'll move in his own army, which he says must be just as strong, just as well funded as the military. Can we allow that?
No.
Let us, my fellow Americans, from tonight on, make it a vow to stand up for America, to continue to say enough is enough. Motivate yourself. Close your eyes and think about that flag as it waves so boldly and so proudly, and what it means, what those red and white stripes stand for, what the stars stand for, what America stands for, what we've done for the world, and what we can continue to do if we're left alone by the government, if we're allowed to prosper according to the free market system, if we're allowed to think and to excel on our own,
not doing what the government tells us to do, which the government can't do anything right in the first place. You name me one thing. I can't even name one thing the government can do right. We couldn't even line up at the chow hall when I was in the military, right? Okay, they can blow it up. But this is my dream today, is that I will help help each and every one of you realize just how important it is, just how meaningful it should be to you to think on these things about America. That Gadsden flag doesn't say don't thread on me for no reason. The American red, white, and blue, the red in that flag is the blood that we've shed throughout the years to become a great nation. And then to sit down because a president tells us that we're not deserving, we're too proud, that we're not the nation that we should be, that other nations are just as exceptional as we are. That's not true. Where were the rest of the world when our boys jumped out of those amphibious ships and went ashore? Thousands died, but the ones that lived fought until they won. They didn't give up. They could have. They could have turned around and jumped back on those boats and said, we won't go. They did it in Washington, D.C. The long hairs, they used the term, they said, hell no, we won't go. But the brave, those who loved America, they went and they fought. And we can't let their deaths be for nothing. We can't let our founding fathers, what they swore upon and what they brought forth in this new nation, go to waste. Because if you do, it's like Ronald Reagan said, we lose America, there ain't no place else to go. Where are you going to go? We are the city that sits on a hill. We are the shining light of the world. If we allow them to spin us into oblivion, to wreck our military, to destroy our Constitution, we will be no better than anyone else in the world, and it will be our own fault. We must stand. We must win. We can win, and we will win. Thank you.